Unaware she controlled the capital behind his entire division's expansion, he told her she no longer fit his vision, that they were growing in different directions. He left her the same week his promotion was announced. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She opened her laptop to an email marked Strategic Review Committee and started making calls. By the time he realized who she really was, the decisions were already final. Before we go any further, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Now let's begin. You know that night where everything looked like success, but betrayal hid underneath the champagne? That was the night Grant Keller received his promotion at the downtown Chicago corporate headquarters. He stood in a glass-walled conference room overlooking the river, 30 floors up, wearing a charcoal suit with his company badge still clipped to the pocket. The kind of look that screamed, "I made it," without saying a word. Fluorescent lights reflected off polished marble floors. The scent of coffee mixed with new leather and printer toner. Phones were out. Colleagues snapping photos, posting congratulations on LinkedIn, tagging the company like they all shared the win. On every screen in the building, one announcement kept circulating. Grant Keller promoted to senior director. Manhattan relocation approved. Division selected for strategic expansion review. His manager clapped him on the back. Leadership praised his vision. The executive team mentioned his name alongside future, investment, and growth. Across the city, in the apartment they still shared, Alicia Monroe packed boxes in silence. She moved through the room slowly, hands steady. No tears. No phone calls to friends. She folded clothes, wrapped picture frames in newspaper, labeled boxes with a black marker. The kind of calm people mistake for defeat. She liked it that way. Let them assume. Grant had texted her twice that afternoon. Big news. We need to talk tonight. Got the promotion. Everything's changing. Alicia had read them both. She hadn't responded. She already knew what everything's changing meant. She'd heard the shift in his voice over the past 3 months. The way he started saying I instead of we. The way he stopped mentioning her name in professional circles. The way he looked at her after networking events, like she was something he'd outgrown. People had been talking about Grant's rise for weeks. The consulting contracts he'd landed. The certifications that opened doors. The polished confidence that impressed executives. What they didn't know, what Grant had started to forget, was who had paid for those certifications. Who had covered rent during his layoffs. Who had believed in him when the offers dried up and the rejections piled high. Alicia. But her name never appeared on any of his success stories. And that had been intentional. On her part, at least. The memories came in flashes as she packed. 3 years ago, Grant sitting at their kitchen table, head in his hands, rejection letter number 12 spread in front of him. I don't know if I'm cut out for this. Alicia had pulled out her laptop. How much is the PMP certification? $3,500. But I can't. I didn't ask if you could. I asked how much. She'd transferred the money that night. 2 years ago, Grant losing his consulting contract mid-project. Rent was due. His savings were gone. Alicia had covered it. Didn't make a speech. Didn't ask for gratitude. Just handled it. I'll pay you back, he'd promised. Focus on the next contract, she'd said. He never paid her back. 18 months ago, Grant landed his first big client, a Fortune 500 logistics firm that needed process optimization. He'd practiced his pitch for 2 weeks. Alicia had listened to every run-through, tightened his talking points, told him which slides to cut. He got the contract. She got a thank you text. The pattern repeated. Certification courses. New suits for interviews. Conference fees. Networking dinners. Alicia funded the infrastructure of his rise, and Grant absorbed the credit like oxygen. She'd watched him change in real time. The way he started name-dropping executives. The way he began checking LinkedIn notifications during dinner. The way he stopped asking about her day and started monologuing about his. And then came the promotion. Grant came home late that night, still riding the high. He walked into the apartment, saw the boxes, and stopped in the doorway. His expression shifted, surprise, then discomfort, then relief. You already know, he said quietly. Alicia taped a box shut. Know what? That this, us, it doesn't make sense anymore. He set his bag down carefully. I'm moving to New York. New role. New chapter. And I think. You think we're growing in different directions. Grant exhaled, grateful she was making this easy. Exactly. You get it. She turned to face him, leaning against the kitchen counter, arms crossed loosely. No anger. No heartbreak. Just observation. I do get it. He smiled, small, apologetic, already halfway out the door emotionally. I knew you'd understand. You've always been supportive. The word hung in the air like an insult he didn't realize he'd delivered. Alicia nodded once. I have. Grant ran a hand through his hair. This opportunity in New York, it's everything I've worked for. And I need to be surrounded by people who are on the same level. Professionally. People on your level. You know what I mean. He softened his tone, the way people do when they're trying to sound kind while being cruel. You've been amazing, but you're still figuring things out, and I'm past that stage now. Still figuring things out. Alicia had built a 7-figure investment portfolio before she turned 30. She was a managing partner at a private equity firm that moved markets without press releases. But Grant had never asked what she did during the day. He'd assumed financial consulting meant she was struggling like he had been. Assumptions, she'd learned, were useful. They made people careless. Grant grabbed a few things from the bedroom. Charger, watch, a framed photo of himself at a conference, and headed for the door. He paused at the threshold, looked back, then just said, "Take care of yourself, Alicia." The door clicked shut. Alicia stood in the center of the apartment, surrounded by boxes and silence. She walked to the window, watched Grant's car pull out of the parking lot, taillights disappearing into Chicago traffic. Then she walked to her desk, opened her laptop, and pulled up the email she'd received that morning. From Meridian Crest Capital, Strategic Operations. Subject, Division Review Committee Assignment, Confidential. Attached, Expansion Candidate List, Q3. She scrolled down the candidate list slowly. And there it was. Grant Keller, Senior Director, Division 7. Chicago to Manhattan Transition. Recommended for $4.2 million expansion funding. Alicia stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she opened a new message, typed 3 names into the CC line, her partners at Meridian Crest, and began drafting the review schedule. No emotion, no theatrics, just work. She hit send at 11:47 p.m. By midnight, the meeting was scheduled for 3 weeks out. Manhattan office. Full committee. Standard evaluation protocol. Alicia closed her laptop, poured herself a glass of water, and sat in the quiet apartment one last time. Grant thought he was stepping into his future. He had no idea his future was about to be reviewed by the woman he'd just erased. But to understand why Alicia didn't react the way most people would, why she didn't call him, didn't fight, didn't even look surprised, you have to go back 5 years to a version of Alicia Monroe most people never saw. Alicia grew up in a house where money was a language spoken in whispers. Her parents were second-generation immigrants who'd built a small accounting firm in Philadelphia. Not wealthy, not struggling. Somewhere in between, where every dollar had a job and no expense went unexamined. Her father had a saying, "Loud money attracts problems. Quiet money builds empires." He never raised his voice, never bragged about clients. But every year, the firm grew. By the time Alicia graduated high school, her parents owned their building outright and had 3 employees. She learned early, power didn't need a microphone. Alicia studied finance at Northwestern. She didn't go to the networking mixers, didn't join the investment clubs that felt more like performance art than education. She stayed in the library, reading SEC filings and shareholder reports while her classmates practiced their elevator pitches. She graduated with a 3.9 GPA and 0 job offers. Because she hadn't played the game. So she built her own. At 23, Alicia took the money she'd saved from internships and part-time work, $18,000, and opened a brokerage account. She didn't chase tech stocks or trendy startups. She looked for inefficiencies. Companies trading below book value because of temporary bad press. REITs in overlooked markets. Dividend aristocrats no one talked about because they were boring. Boring made money. Within 2 years, her $18,000 became $64,000. By year 4, she'd cracked 6 figures. People started noticing. One of her former professors introduced her to Marcus Chun, a private equity veteran who ran a quiet operation out of Chicago. Meridian Crest Capital. You wouldn't find them on any top firm's list. They didn't court publicity. They didn't need to. Marcus met her at a coffee shop in the Loop. No pitch deck, no formalities. "I've seen your trades," he said, sliding a folder across the table. You don't follow the noise. Noise is expensive, Alicia replied. He smiled. How would you like to manage real capital? She started as an analyst. Within 18 months, she was running deals. Within 3 years, Marcus made her a partner. By the time she met Grant Keller at a mutual friend's birthday party, Alicia Monroe was a managing partner at a firm that quietly controlled $240 million in assets. But she never mentioned it. Not because she was ashamed. Because she'd learned that silence was a filter. The people who assumed she was aimless, who overlooked her, who underestimated her, those people told on themselves. And Grant told on himself from the beginning. Their first conversation, he dominated it. Talked about his goals, his plans, the consulting firm he wanted to build. He'd asked what she did once, and when she said financial work, he'd nodded and moved on, assuming he understood. He didn't. But Alicia found something magnetic in his ambition. He reminded her of the strivers she'd grown up around. People who wanted more and were willing to work for it. She believed in investing in potential. So she invested in him. Not publicly. Not loudly. She simply removed obstacles. When he needed a certification, she funded it. When he needed stability, she provided it. When he needed confidence, she reinforced it. She thought of it like any other investment. Strategic, calculated, long-term. What she didn't account for was that some people, when they succeed, don't remember who bought them time to grow. They rewrite history to center themselves. Grant moved to New York 3 days after the breakup. He posted about it constantly. Photos of his new apartment in Williamsburg. The Manhattan skyline from his office. Captions about new beginnings and leveling up. Alicia watched from Chicago, scrolling past his updates without reacting. Meanwhile, she prepared for her own move. Meridian Crest had been planning to open a New York satellite office for over a year. The timing was coincidental, but the opportunity was intentional. Marcus had asked Alicia to lead the expansion. She accepted. While Grant settled into his promotion, attending happy hours and building his network, Alicia was in conference rooms with attorneys, structuring deals, and reviewing acquisition targets. Different worlds. Same city. Grant's world was loud. LinkedIn posts. Team celebrations. Client dinners where everyone competed to sound important. Alicia's world was quiet. NDAs. Closed-door meetings. Decisions made over encrypted emails and signed in offices most people would never see. Grant started rewriting their history almost immediately. At a networking event in Soho, someone asked him how he'd managed to break into senior leadership so fast. Persistence, Grant said, swirling his whiskey. And knowing when to bet on yourself. No mention of Alicia. At a panel discussion on career growth, he told the audience, I invested in my own development. Certifications. Coaching. I didn't wait for permission. He'd waited for her visa to clear, but that part didn't make the story. In a LinkedIn post that got 4,000 likes, he wrote, Success is about sacrifice. I've lost relationships, missed events, turned down easy paths. But every choice brought me closer to where I needed to be. Alicia read it twice. Then she closed the app and went back to work. 6 weeks after Grant's promotion, Meridian Crest's investment committee convened to review Q3 expansion opportunities. Alicia sat at the head of the table in their Midtown office, 22 floors above street level. Marcus was on her right. 2 other partners on her left. A legal advisor at the far end. The assistant passed out folders. We have 4 divisions under consideration, Marcus said. 2 in logistics, 1 in pharma distribution, 1 in tech consulting. Alicia opened her folder. 3rd file down. Division 7, Tech Consulting, Grant Keller, Senior Director. Her expression didn't change. Marcus continued. Division 7 has requested $4.2 million in expansion funding. They've projected aggressive growth, new client acquisition, and a tripling of headcount over 18 months. One of the other partners, Victoria, flipped through the financials. Projections look optimistic. Almost too optimistic. We'll need to vet the leadership, Marcus said. Standard review. Financials, operational efficiency, scalability. He looked at Alicia. You're based in New York now. Can you lead the on-site evaluation? Alicia kept her voice neutral. I can. Good. Schedule it for next month. Full committee review. She made a note in her planner. No one in the room knew she'd dated Grant Keller. No one needed to. That night, Alicia returned to her apartment in Tribeca. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Minimal furniture. Everything in its place. She poured a glass of wine and stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. Grant was out there somewhere, probably celebrating another small win, building his brand, convinced his trajectory was unstoppable. Alicia pulled out her phone and opened the calendar. She scheduled the review meeting for 9 a.m., 3 weeks out. Then she texted her assistant, confirmed Division 7 leadership review. Full presentation expected. Standard protocol. The reply came back instantly. Confirmed. Invitation sent to Grant Keller. Alicia set her phone down. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. The work would speak for itself. Grant Keller arrived at the Meridian Crest Capital offices 17 minutes early. He'd woken up at 5:30 a.m., reviewed his presentation 4 times, rehearsed his talking points in the mirror. This wasn't just a meeting. This was validation. Proof that his instincts had been right, that his rise was inevitable. The receptionist smiled when he checked in. "They'll be ready for you shortly." "Coffee?" "No, thanks." He wanted to stay sharp. He sat in the waiting area, surrounded by minimalist furniture and abstract art that probably cost more than his car. Everything about the space whispered money, but not in a flashy way. In a way that didn't need to prove anything. Grant adjusted his tie. His phone buzzed. A text from a coworker. "Good luck with the big dogs." Crush it. He would. The presentation was flawless. 30 slides. Market analysis. Growth projections. Client testimonials. Every number double-checked. Every claim sourced. He'd spent 2 weeks preparing. This was his moment. The assistant appeared in the doorway. "They're ready for you, Mr. Keller." Grant stood, grabbed his leather portfolio, and followed her down a hallway lined with frosted glass. The conference room was exactly what he expected. Long table, leather chairs, Manhattan skyline visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. Morning light cut across the room in clean angles. 3 people were already seated. Marcus Chun at the head of the table, silver-haired, expression unreadable. Victoria Huang to his left, sharp-eyed, flipping through a document. An attorney whose name Grant didn't catch, taking notes on a tablet. Grant stepped inside, smiled, extended his hand. "Grant Keller, thank you for the opportunity." Marcus shook his hand. "We've been reviewing your division's proposal. Impressive growth targets. We're confident we can exceed them. Let's see." Marcus gestured to the empty chair. "Have a seat. We're waiting for one more." Grant sat, opened his portfolio, pulled out his notes. The door opened behind him. He didn't turn immediately. He was busy organizing his materials. Footsteps. Measured. Unhurried. Then a voice he hadn't heard in 2 months. "Good morning." Grant froze. He looked up. Alicia Monroe stood at the entrance, wearing a charcoal suit, hair pulled back, holding a leather folio. She met his eyes for half a second, no recognition, no emotion, and then moved to the seat directly across from him. Grant's brain short-circuited. She sat down, opened her folio, pulled out a pen. Marcus made introductions. "Grant Keller. This is Alicia Monroe, managing partner. She'll be leading today's evaluation." Grant couldn't speak. Alicia's expression remained perfectly neutral. "Mr. Keller." Not Grant. "Mr. Keller." He forced himself to respond. "Ms. Monroe." His voice came out steadier than he felt. Victoria glanced between them. If she noticed anything, she didn't show it. Marcus leaned back. "Alicia's been reviewing your division's financials. She'll be walking us through some questions before we move to your presentation." Alicia didn't look at Grant. She looked at the file in front of her. "Let's start with headcount projections," she said, voice calm, professional. "You're proposing a 200% increase over 18 months. Walk me through the operational infrastructure that supports that scaling." Grant blinked. "Try to shift gears." "Right. Yes. We've identified 3 key hiring phases." Before we get to phases, Alicia interrupted gently. "I'd like to understand current capacity utilization. Your division is currently operating at what percentage of maximum output?" Grant hesitated. "Approximately 78%. So you have 22% capacity available before needing to scale." "Correct. And your current client acquisition rate is?" 2 to 3 new clients per quarter." Alicia made a note. "Your proposal projects 12 new clients in Q1 alone. That's a 400% increase in acquisition rate. What operational changes justify that confidence?" Grant opened his mouth, closed it. He'd practiced the growth story. He hadn't practiced defending the math behind it. "We're expanding our outreach," he said. "New marketing strategies. Broader network. Outreach is activity, Alicia said. I'm asking about conversion infrastructure. How many sales calls does your team currently handle per week? Grant felt sweat forming at his collar. I need to pull those numbers. You don't have them here? Not broken down by week. Victoria glanced at Marcus. Alicia moved on. Let's talk about client retention. Your proposal assumes 95% retention over the expansion period. Your current retention rate is. Grant knew this one. 91%. What systemic changes are you implementing to close that 4-point gap while simultaneously tripling headcount and quadrupling client load? Silence. Grant tried to find the answer in his notes. It wasn't there. Because he'd built the projections around what sounded impressive, not what was operationally sound. Alicia waited. Grant finally said, we'll be implementing new client success protocols, such as quarterly check-ins, dedicated account managers. You don't currently do quarterly check-ins? We do. We'll be enhancing them. Alicia made another note. The questions continued for 40 minutes. Revenue per employee, profit margins, overhead costs, technology infrastructure, training timelines, contingency planning. Every answer Grant gave felt thinner than the last. He'd built a presentation that looked good in slides. Alicia was dissecting the foundation it was built on, and she did it without cruelty. No sarcasm, no condescension, just calm, relentless precision. Finally, Marcus checked his watch. I think we have what we need for now. Grant, we'll review your materials internally and follow up within 2 weeks. Grant stood. His legs felt unsteady. Thank you for your time. He shook hands around the table. When he reached Alicia, she extended her hand, expression unchanged. We'll be in touch. Her hand was cool, firm. She released his grip exactly when politeness required. Grant left the conference room in a daze. He made it to the elevator, pressed the button, waited. The doors opened. He stepped inside. And only then, as the elevator descended, did the full weight of what had just happened hit him. Alicia wasn't just in the room. She was running the room. She wasn't a guest. She was a partner. And she'd just spent 40 minutes exposing every weak point in his proposal without raising her voice once. The elevator reached the lobby. Grant walked out into the morning sunlight, but the brightness felt wrong. Everything felt wrong. He pulled out his phone, stared at it, then put it away. Who could he call? What would he even say? He walked 3 blocks before he realized he was going the wrong direction. He stopped on the corner of 53rd and Park, surrounded by people in suits moving with purpose. And for the first time since his promotion, Grant Keller felt something he hadn't felt in years. Fear. 3 weeks passed. Grant heard nothing. No email. No call. No update. He refreshed his inbox obsessively. Checked spam. Double-checked his voicemail. Nothing. At work, people kept asking about the expansion. When do we start hiring? His team lead asked. Still in review, Grant said. It's been 3 weeks. These things take time. But they didn't usually take this long. Grant tried to focus on his regular work, but concentration felt impossible. Every notification made his heart jump. Every unknown number felt like a verdict. He thought about reaching out to Alicia directly. He drafted the email 4 times. Deleted it 4 times. What would he even say? Hey, I know I broke up with you, but can you approve my funding? Sorry for leaving, but business is business, right? He couldn't find words that didn't sound desperate or delusional. So he waited. On a Tuesday morning, 5 weeks after the review, Grant's calendar pinged with a meeting request. Subject, HR follow-up. Time, 2 p.m. Location, conference room B. His stomach dropped. HR meetings weren't good, especially unscheduled ones. He showed up 10 minutes early. Sandra from HR was already there, along with his direct supervisor, Kevin, and someone from legal he'd seen before but never worked with. No one smiled. Have a seat, Grant, Sandra said. He sat. She slid a folder across the table. We need to discuss some structural changes to your division. Grant opened the folder. The first page was titled, Division 7 Restructuring Plan, approved by Executive Committee. He scanned the bullet points. Expansion funding, denied. Headcount increase, postponed indefinitely. Budget reallocation, approved. Role adjustments, under review. Grant looked up. I don't understand. The proposal was solid. Kevin cleared his throat. The investment committee had concerns about operational scalability. What concerns? I can address. The decision's been made, Sandra interrupted. We're not here to revisit it. Grant's hands went cold. Then why am I here? Your role is being reevaluated, Sanders said. The senior director title remains, but your scope is being reduced. You'll be managing current clients only. No new acquisitions. No team expansion. The room tilted. That's not a promotion, Grant said. That's a demotion. It's a recalibration, Kevin said. Given the funding situation. Who made this decision? Executive leadership. In consultation with external partners. External partners. Grant felt the pieces click into place. Meridian Crest. Alicia. This is... He stopped himself before he said something he couldn't take back. Can I appeal? Sandra's expression was sympathetic but final. You can submit a formal response. But I'll be honest, these decisions are usually final. The legal rep spoke for the first time. We'll need you to sign acknowledgement of the restructuring by end of week. They slid another document across the table. Grant stared at it. 5 weeks ago, he'd been untouchable, rising, celebrated. Now he was signing papers that erased his future. He picked up the pen. His hand shook slightly. He signed. The meeting ended. Grant walked back to his desk in a fog. His co-workers didn't know yet. They were laughing about something, sharing lunch plans, oblivious. He sat down, stared at his screen. An email notification popped up. From Meridian Crest Capital Investment Committee. Subject, Division 7 Review, Final Decision. He opened it. Dear Mr. Keller, after careful review of your division's expansion proposal, Meridian Crest Capital has determined that the current operational infrastructure does not support the projected scaling targets. As a result, we are declining to move forward with the requested funding. We appreciate the opportunity to review your materials. Best regards, Alicia Monroe, Managing Partner. Grant read it 3 times. Professional, polite, impersonal. No reference to their history. No acknowledgement of anything beyond business. That was somehow worse than anger. Over the next 2 weeks, the consequences compounded. His team started getting reassigned. 2 people transferred to other divisions. 1 quit. The Manhattan office stopped inviting him to leadership meetings. His LinkedIn engagement dropped. People stopped liking his posts. Industry contacts stopped responding to his messages. He wasn't fired. He was just frozen. Still employed. Still titled. But stuck. No momentum. No trajectory. No future. Grant started piecing together the timeline. The breakup. The review committee. Alicia's role. The denial. It couldn't be coincidence. But it also couldn't be proven. Because everything Alicia had done was technically, legally, professionally justifiable. She'd asked fair questions. She'd identified real weaknesses. She'd made a data-driven decision. The fact that the data happened to destroy him specifically, that was just business. He thought about confronting her. Thought about demanding an explanation. Thought about appealing to whatever they'd had. But every time he imagined the conversation, he saw her face in that conference room. Calm. Professional. Unmoved. And he knew. There was no appeal. No second chance. No reconciliation. He'd made his choice when he walked out of their apartment. And she'd made hers when she opened that review file. On a Friday evening, 6 weeks after the HR meeting, Grant sat alone in his apartment. The same apartment he'd posted about with pride. Now it felt hollow. He opened his laptop, pulled up Alicia's LinkedIn profile. Her title, Managing Partner, Meridian Crest Capital. He scrolled through her experience. 5 years at the firm. Managed portfolio, $240 million plus. Led investor in 12 successful expansions. All of it had been there. The whole time. And he'd never looked. He'd been so convinced he was the one rising. He'd never considered she'd already risen. Grant closed the laptop, poured himself a drink, and stared out at the Manhattan skyline he'd once thought belonged to him. Somewhere in this city, Alicia Monroe was moving forward. And Grant Keller was standing still. He pulled out his phone, typed a message, "Can we talk?" Stared at it for 5 minutes. Then deleted it. Instead, he sent, "I'd like to meet. If you're willing." He hit send before he could overthink it. 3 minutes later, his phone buzzed. Alicia Monroe, Thursday, 3 p.m., Rockefeller Center. Conference room, 12B. No greeting. No warmth. Just logistics. Grant typed, "Thank you." She didn't respond. He set his phone down. For days until Thursday. For days to figure out what to say to the woman who'd built him up, watched him walk away, and quietly dismantled everything he thought he'd earned. Thursday arrived cold and gray. Grant stood outside Rockefeller Center at 2:50 p.m., wearing the same suit he'd worn to the review meeting. He'd rehearsed what he wanted to say, but every version sounded hollow. I'm sorry. Too small. I didn't know. Too late. Can we fix this? Too presumptuous. He rode the elevator to the 12th floor. Conference room 12B was at the end of a quiet hallway. Frosted glass door. Neutral furniture. Windows overlooking the ice rink below, where people glided in circles, oblivious. Alicia was already there. She sat at the far end of the table, back straight, hands folded. She wore a navy suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled into a low bun. The same composed presence he'd seen in the boardroom. Grant, she said. Not warmly. Not coldly. Just acknowledgement. Alicia. He sat across from her, leaving 2 empty chairs between them. Thank you for meeting me. You asked for 20 minutes, she said. I have 20 minutes. Straight to business. No small talk. No softening. Grant swallowed. I wanted to. I need to explain. Explain what? Why I ended things. Why I said what I said. Alicia tilted her head slightly. You already explained. You were growing in a different direction. You needed to be around people on your level. The words sounded worse coming from her mouth. I didn't mean it like that, Grant said. How did you mean it? He struggled. I was scared. Of what? Of not being enough. The admission came out raw. Everything was changing so fast. The promotion, the move, the new expectations. I felt like I was constantly trying to prove I belonged. And I thought you'd see through me. See that I was faking it. Alicia listened without interrupting. Grant continued. So I convinced myself the problem was us. That we were misaligned. That you wouldn't fit into the life I was building. But the truth was, I was terrified you'd realize I didn't fit into it either. Silence. Alicia's expression hadn't changed. I'm sorry, Grant said. For how I treated you. For taking credit for things you made possible. For acting like I did it alone. You did do it alone, Alicia said quietly. Grant frowned. What? You made every choice that mattered. I provided resources. You decided how to use them. I removed obstacles. You decided which direction to run. She paused. I supported you. But you built your career. That part was real. Then why? He stopped. Why did your expansion get denied? Alicia finished. Grant nodded. Alicia leaned forward slightly. Because the proposal was weak. It wasn't. It was, she said, not unkindly. Your projections were inflated. Your operational plan had gaps. Your infrastructure couldn't support the scaling you promised. Any competent investor would have flagged the same concerns. But you. I recused myself from the final vote, Alicia said. I presented the analysis. The committee made the decision. Unanimously. Grant's throat tightened. You could have helped me fix it. I could have, Alicia agreed. But why would I? The question landed like a slap. Because. Grant searched for an answer. Because we meant something to each other. We did, Alicia said. Past tense. She stood, walked to the window, looked down at the skaters. You want to know what hurt? She said, back still turned. Not the breakup. Not the timing. Not even the words you used. She turned to face him. What hurt was realizing you never saw me. Grant opened his mouth. She held up a hand. You saw support. You saw convenience. You saw someone who made your life easier. But you never asked what I did during the day. Never wondered how I could afford to cover your rent. Never questioned where the money came from. I thought. You thought I was struggling like you were, Alicia said. You thought I was figuring things out. You assumed I was less than you. And when you got promoted, you didn't just leave me behind. You left behind the version of me you invented. Grant felt his face flush. I didn't. You told people you invested in yourself, Alicia continued. You posted about sacrifice. About betting on your own development. You rewrote history to center yourself. And maybe you believed it. Maybe you really forgot. I didn't forget, Grant said quietly. Then you chose to erase me. The words hung in the air. Grant looked down at his hands. I did. Alicia returned to her seat. You asked if we could fix this, she said. The answer is no. Not because I'm angry. Not because I want revenge. But because trust is currency, Grant. And you spent all of yours. I can earn it back. No, Alicia said simply. You can't. She pulled a folder from her bag, slid it across the table. Grant opened it. Inside were copies of bank transfers, certification payments, rent checks, all dated, all documented, receipts of everything she'd given him. I'm not showing you this to humiliate you, Alicia said. I'm showing you so you understand. This wasn't emotional. It wasn't vindictive. It was a record. Grant stared at the numbers. $38,000 over 5 years. I kept track, Alicia continued, because I keep track of all my investments. Some pay off, some don't. Yours didn't. I'll pay you back, Grant said. Every dollar. I don't want your money. Then what do you want? Alicia stood, gathered her things. I want you to understand something, she said. You didn't leave because you outgrew me. You left because you thought I was invisible. You thought support was weakness. You thought quiet meant powerless. She picked up her bag. You were wrong. Grant stood. Alicia, this meeting is over. Please. She looked at him one last time. You're going to be fine, Grant. You'll keep your job. You'll rebuild. Maybe you'll even get promoted again someday. But you'll do it knowing that the trajectory you thought was inevitable was actually contingent. On choices. On respect. On seeing the people who help you. She walked to the door. I hope you see them next time. She left. Grant stood alone in the conference room, the folder of receipts still open in front of him. He looked out the window. Below, the skaters kept circling. Around and around. Going nowhere. 6 months later, Alicia Monroe sat in her Tribeca apartment, laptop open, reviewing Q4 investment reports. Meridian Crest had closed 3 major deals that quarter. Portfolio value had grown by 18%. Marcus was talking about expanding into international markets. Her phone buzzed. A LinkedIn notification. Grant Keller posted an update. She almost scrolled past. But curiosity won. She clicked. The post read, 6 months ago, I learned a hard lesson about humility. I thought success was about individual brilliance. I was wrong. Success is built on foundations other people help you lay, and if you forget that, the whole thing crumbles. I'm grateful for the people who supported me when I had nothing to offer in return. I'm sorry to the ones I didn't see clearly enough. I'm working every day to be better. No tags. No performative vulnerability. Just honesty. Alicia read it twice. Then closed the app. She didn't like it. Didn't comment. Didn't share. But she didn't need to. The lesson had already landed. She returned to her reports, poured herself tea, and kept building. Quietly. Powerfully. Invisibly. Exactly the way she always had.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Subscribe, like, and click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.